Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. I'd like to talk a little bit about, as I understand it, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, but the department's budget proposal is to eliminate funds for community development block grants. And much in my state, I think, has been impacted a lot by those block grants, particularly with regard to sewers. We have some serious issues in Alabama, particularly in the Black Belt, with sanitation and sewer systems that are outdated. Raw sewage is backing up into homes. I know that's not the case for everyone, but it is a serious problem in Alabama. So I haven't seen in the President's proposal certain infrastructure dollars available for sewer projects. So how would you address, in the housing context, an issue for sewer if you plan on doing away with the block grant, community development block grant proposal?
Thank you for that question, and congratulations on your election.
Thank you.
First of all, CDBG has had a very positive impact in many areas of the country. There also have been problems with directing the funds to the people who are supposed to be impacted, which are the low-income individuals. There are other mechanisms for taking care of, but I will tell you that there are billions of dollars in the CDBG pipeline already. It's going to take more than a year to disperse those funds, number one. Number two, through programs like the Opportunity Zones, which I hope you're becoming familiar with, it will be possible to address many of the same types of issues while at the same time encouraging tremendous input of private capital into those zones.
On that real quick, I mean, and I appreciate the fact that you got money in there. We need some, and I would invite you to come to Alabama to see some of this. But look, I'm all in favor of the Opportunity Zones. I think that's a great idea. But do you really expect a New York investor or somebody to invest money in one of the poorest counties in Alabama to help with their sewers? Do you really think that that's something that an investor is going to do?
When it's incorporated into a much larger project, when you incorporate the whole area, very frequently you have to deal with the infrastructure problems as well. You have to deal with the housing problems as well. So all of them are interconnected.
All right, I hope you're right. I really question whether or not we're going to get that kind of private investment in the areas that are impacted most in poor rural America. But be that as it may, I'm hoping that I think Congress will continue to fund those grants. The other thing I want to follow up with Senator Shelby's question about the dilapidated housing that is apparently a problem that you've recognized. Senator Shelby has seen it. I have seen it. But again, the administration proposed to eliminate the Housing Capital Fund that repairs this public housing. It is aging. In Alabama, we have $50 million that usually comes in, and those funds are also desperately needed. How are you going to make up that difference to address the very needs that you yourself talked about a few minutes ago in your answer to Senator Shelby?
Well, one of the things that I've noticed is that we're not building a lot of public housing anymore. There's a good reason for that. It generally tends to fall into disrepair simply because there isn't the local interest in it. By converting these to public-private partnership opportunities through things like the RAD program, which has been extremely successful, 88,000 units have already been revamped that way. We have 30,000 more scheduled for this year. We have a waiting list of 86,000. Those things have been working very, very effectively. That, coupled with monies that will be brought in through the Opportunity Zones, I think will take care of a lot of issues. We're looking at unleashing probably in excess of $2 trillion. Those are major, major changes.
Well, I hope you're right. I question whether or not there's going to be that kind of investment in these housing projects. They don't make a lot of money. there's not that much of a return. I've represented people that have been in those projects. I've represented people who have owned a couple of those. But we'll see. We hope you're right, but I also hope that the Congress will once again come back and find a different route and continue to fund that program as well as the development block grants.
Thank
but
you.
I appreciate your efforts. And the one thing I would say finally, and I know my time's up, but I do appreciate the fact that despite all the distractions, I do appreciate the fact that you are focusing on trying to lift people up. I think that's a good thing. I just don't want to ignore the fact that people, despite all the efforts to lift them up, they just can't quite make it. And there's a lot of people in my state that despite their efforts and their desire and their heart, and they're trying like hell, but they just can't quite make it. And we need to be there for those people continually.
I agree. We do need to be there for them, but that is part of the reason that we're embarking upon the Envision Center project, because we want to put the resources in place conveniently for them to be able to get them. The reason that you're successful, the reason I'm successful, is because there were things in our environment, there were people in our environment that helped us along the way. Nobody makes it on their own.
We can agree on that one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator